After 6 long years, a billionaire woman's incredible reunion with her ex and twin daughters is R. Sarah Bennett stood at the edge of the park, the familiar chirps of children playing reminding her of a happier time, a life once filled with giggles and boundless love. Now, after countless board meetings and business deals, she felt like a stranger in a place that once felt like home. The laughter of other families pierced her heart, exposing a void that her wealth had dug deeper. A deep breath settled uneasily in her chest, as the thought of her daughters Lily and Emma made waves of guilt roll over her. Their happiness once was her world, yet here she was, an empire builder, standing utterly alone, far from their embrace. She hesitated to take a step forward, aware that every inch closer to the swings where she once pushed them would unearth memories of better days and unbearable regrets. The corporate success had come at a hefty price. She swam in riches, but the faces that meant everything to her were shadows in her life. Each time she reached for her phone, a wave of panic washed over her. She hadn't spoken to them in days, weeks. How quickly had time slipped through her fingers? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The weight of her decisions clung to her, and as she walked toward the park's entrance, another wave of fear surged through her. What if their love had faded? What if she was no longer the mother they remembered? The possibility crackled in the air, suffocating her. And then there was Michael, her ex-husband, a man who had never left her heart, even through their fiery divorce. Would he be able to forgive her for choosing ambition over family? As the sun dipped below the horizon, she recalled his passion for teaching, confronted the anger buried beneath the surface about their past. A swirl of emotions gripped her tighter. She wanted to help him save the school that had been his lifeblood even as it cast shadows of doubt over her contributions. Was it too late for her to make amends? And then, as she tried to reconcile those feelings, the sobering realization struck her with jarring clarity. Every moment she spent sealing deals was another moment lost with her girls. The duality of her life, a queen in the corporate world but a ghost at home, throbbed relentlessly within her. Yet, the fear of showing Michael just how vulnerable she had become kept her rooted in indecision. Anguish rippled through her like a current, weighing her down. What did wealth mean in the wake of a family fracture? Yet just when she thought she could commit to change, news of budget cuts at Michael's school sent her emotions spiraling again, igniting resentment and unresolved feelings they'd buried long ago. Standing on that battlefield of conflicting priorities, she faced the greatest tension of all. Could she really patch together the pieces of her broken family, or would her ambition set her down a path of deeper loneliness? The clock ticked ominously as she braced herself for an answer, leaving her teetering on the edge of a decision that could shift everything. As the clouds darkened, obscuring the last traces of sunlight, Sarah's thoughts raced through the mind of a corporate tycoon grappling with a personal crisis. She felt the pressure weighing upon her. The impending cuts at Michael's school loomed large, like the figure of an insurmountable mountain. The decision she faced was no trivial matter. It indicated more than just a shift in plans. It was about reclaiming her identity and redefining her existence. She clenched her fists, her pulse quickening. Could her skills as a businesswoman translate into a rescue mission for the fragile educational institution that had captured her ex-husband's passion? Sarah's mind wandered to the boardrooms she had dominated, where every negotiation had felt like an arduous but necessary game. This, however, felt crucial beyond profits and losses. Suddenly, a notion sparked within her. What if she leveraged her resources not just for herself, but to help fund the school's programs that had been flagged for cuts? A quick plan formed as she recollected the contacts she had amassed over the years in philanthropic circles. Friends who had once offered her advice only for her benefit might share a vision for something larger, something altruistic, a chance to renew a legacy that had been disproportionately overshadowed by her ruthless ambition. With a newfound sense of purpose tantalizing her, she raised her phone, the bright screen illuminating her face in the gathering dusk. The number of her former business mentor blinked back at her. Jonathan had always advocated for balancing profit with social responsibility, Perhaps he would help her navigate this territory she had yet to explore. Dialing, she wondered if he would see past the title of billionaire, to the woman who once walked the school halls with her daughters, completely unaware of what awaited her in the future. As the call connected and the voice answered with a warm familiarity, Sarah swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry. Would she sound desperate? Each pause weighed heavily with vulnerability, as if stepping onto a stage after years of hiding in the wings. And yet, as she spoke of the upcoming funding cuts, she felt the vestiges of her fears grip her. Was she prepared to admit that she, too, was wrestling with her responsibilities as a mother while navigating the bureaucracy of her empire, with Jonathan guiding her toward actionable strategies? Ideas sparked within her like a match igniting wood. She found herself outlining potential fundraisers and community engagement tactics, her voice becoming steadier as determination washed over her. It felt thrilling to grasp that elusive spark of professionalism and personal resolve once again. Would this pursuit help bridge the growing gap between her and her daughters? Hanging up, Sarah's heart danced erratically. She committed herself to delve deeper into this project. The notion of rekindling connections entwined with professional growth now merged with her parental aspirations. Indeed, she was beginning to grasp why she had felt so unmoored. She had sacrificed authenticity at the altar of ambition, yet, as the shadows lengthened and twilight set in, an ominous unease lingered. The risks were high, both personally and professionally, as the balance between salvaging the school and restoring her family loomed perilously close to tipping. Could she succeed while confronting the very ties that had bound her to failure before? As she walked away from the park, her mind tangled with the exciting and daunting endeavor ahead, she knew this decision could redirect the trajectory of her life, but at what personal cost? The weight of her ambitions surged against the walls of her heart, igniting a fire she had thought extinguished long ago. The moment of truth was near, but uncertainty thrummed through her veins, filling the air with tension. What would she find along this pathway? Redemption or further isolation, a united family, or the echoing reminder of another lost opportunity? The question gnawed at her even as she strode resolutely toward her next pivotal choices, the night thickening around her an echo of the deeper darkness that could await if she failed to confront her past. The following morning dawned gray and overcast, a mirror to Sarah's turbulent emotions. She leaned against her kitchen counter, cradling a still hot cup of coffee, its rich aroma mingling with the bittersweet tension in her chest. It was only a few hours since her conversation with Jonathan, yet already the concept of resurrection, the revitalization of the school and herself seemed more abstract than real. She watched her reflection in the glossy surface of the kettle, the trace of uncertainty clouding her features. Could she truly balance her corporate prowess with her compassion, or would either one falter? The stakes felt unnervingly high, a precarious tightrope walk between ambition and vulnerability. The text message from Jonathan flashed across her screen, a reminder of their upcoming meeting, her first step towards solidifying her intentions. But as she prepared for the day, a nagging voice reminded her of past failures. This was not her first attempt to combine personal and professional motives. Disappointment had left scars, and Sarah shied away from repeating painful cycles. Still, she leaned into the thought of the school. Each child's future hung in the balance, and she could imagine tiny hands reaching out for knowledge, hope, and guidance. But what of her daughters? The memories surged back, their laughter in the halls, the moments of connection that had felt so effortless, yet had since become strained. She had redirected her ambition away from them and toward business success. The need for their approval now felt desperate, yet in that desperation lay clarity. Inspired by the school's profound significance immediately before her eyes, she began crafting her vision, a blend of educational enrichment programs and connection-building activities designed to ignite passion in the funding circles. Her fingers began flying across the keyboard as she laid out detailed plans. However, with each new idea explored, shadows of self-doubt whispered in her consciousness. As she spun the wheel of possibilities in her mind, the image of her ex-husband, Thomas, flickered to the forefront of her thoughts. His devotion to the school had grounded him, but she had pulled away, seeking success in sterile boardrooms rather than tender moments. In those close quarters, he thrived while she crumbled beneath the expectations imposed on her ambition. The haunting question returned: would he see her as an ally or an adversary in this endeavor? The clock ticked on, urgency pooling in her stomach like an anchor dragging her down. She had agreed to meet with Thomas after years of silence, and the thought both exhilarated and terrified her. What would she find when they stood before each other? Would the weight of their separated lives ripple beneath the surface? It was time to confront the chaos of her conflicting emotions, time to face the past and learn if reconciliation was even possible. She dressed purposefully in a crisp blazer, taking each piece as an affirmation of her renewed commitment to both the school and her family. With their futures intertwined, it was not merely a meeting, it was an opportunity for growth and mending. The air crackled as she stepped outside, her pulse racing with a cocktail of anticipation and fear. The enormity of her chosen path set a fire in her belly. She felt alive, invigorated yet keenly aware of the tightrope she walked. As she approached the cafe where they agreed to meet, the moment felt surreal. Her heartbeat seemed to echo the tumult of the last few years. Somewhere in the depths of her heart, hope battled with skepticism. Could vulnerability produce something beautiful after all, or would she be left wrestling with regret once more? She pushed open the door, steadied her breath, and scanned the room. There he sat, a familiar figure from her past now shrouded in uncertainty. The moment had arrived, charged with implications that could transform everything she embraced. As time slowed, the question hung in the air: would this be a chance to rewrite their story or merely another turning point toward unresolved tension? Sarah took a deep breath and walked toward the table where Thomas sat, the tension palpable in the air between them. The weight of their shared history loomed like an invisible barrier, yet also offered a glimmer of potential. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face, quickly masked by a neutral expression that told her he was as guarded as she was. "Sarah," he said, his voice steady but cautious, as though he were navigating a minefield. "Thomas," she replied, willing her heart to cease its erratic thumping. They exchanged pleasantries that felt hollow, an awkward dance of familiarity in the face of their estrangement. Neither seemed ready to step onto the dance floor of their past, but both recognized they were standing on its edge. As she settled into the chair opposite him, a cascade of emotions churned within. What had she hoped for? Closure? Understanding? The chance to rebuild bridges that had long since splintered into a painful reminder of what had once been? She clutched the edge of the table, grounding herself, and decided to dive into the reason they were here. "I've been thinking about the school," she began, her voice firmer than she felt. "About how we can work together to improve it." He studied her, gauging the openness of her intentions. "You mean with everything going on?" It was a question loaded with suspicion. "Yes. With the right approach, I believe we can make a real impact, not just financially, but in terms of what the school represents to the community." She watched for his reaction, the little shifts in his expression, torn between the ex-wife he remembered and the ambitious woman before him. For a brief moment, the silence stretched, punctuated only by distant chatter and clinking cups. Sarah felt vulnerable, exposed in this fray of possibilities, yet aware there was no turning back now. They were on the cusp of something that required their collective histories to morph into a shared future. "I want to support the school, not just as a project but as a mission," she added, feeling the fire ignite within her. "And I need your insight, your presence. I can't do this alone." "Why now?" he asked, folding his arms defensively. "Where was this passion when we were married? When our daughters needed both of us?" His words pierced through her, igniting a rush of memories: the loud arguments, the distance that had grown between them, the moments where she lost her way, tangled in the pursuit of her ambitions instead of staying grounded in their shared dreams. But before she could respond, a flicker of resolve ignited within. "Because I've realized that success without family is hollow," she confessed, her voice steady. "Every boardroom victory felt like a win, but it's the laughter of our daughters that I truly crave. It's their dreams that matter now." His expression softened, revealing a flicker of understanding, but it was quickly masked by the storm brewing behind his eyes. "Sarah, it's not that simple. Your ambitions have always been much larger than our little world and," he paused, searching for the right words, "are you really committed to this?" His challenge hung heavy in the air, an unspoken test. Would she let the ghosts of their past dictate her future, or could this meeting be the catalyst for transformation? "I am ready to set aside our differences if it means moving forward for them," she asserted, leaning forward. "Then maybe we need to confront what has kept us apart first," he suggested, his tension giving way to wariness. Can we truly put the past behind us? The question spiraled into the depths of her thoughts, imploring her to confront not just their shared history but the very essence of her own choices. It was a pivotal moment, one that demanded strength and clarity. The echo of the past collided with the possibility of a reimagined future. As their conversation drifted deeper, she sensed the gnawing tension building within her. They were standing at the precipice of revelation. It was time to unravel the threads of misunderstanding, to rebuild the fragments of trust. Sarah knew the path ahead would not be easy, but with each layer peeled back, a clearer picture began to emerge, one that not only encompassed their daughters but also offered the chance for Sarah to rediscover herself. As she opened her mouth to advocate for a renewed partnership, the cafe door swung open, and a family walked in. Among them were two familiar faces, daughters she had let down too often. For a moment, time paused, and in that instant, everything was about to change. Sarah's gaze latched onto her daughters, and an avalanche of emotion surged up, nearly choking her. There they were, Anna and Lily, vibrant echoes of both her and Thomas. For a fleeting instant, they appeared blissfully unaware of the tension threading through the cafe. Their laughter rang out, and that innocent joy unleashed a flood of guilt within her. Sarah?" Thomas's voice pulled her back. She blinked and focused on his expression, a mixture of concern and curiosity mingling in the depths of his gaze. "You okay?" Yes. I mean, no." The words tumbled out unfiltered, revealing her inner turmoil. "I need to talk to them. Can we pause?" He hesitated, the flicker of a question crossing his face. "You really want to?" Turning back to where her daughters were seated, their backs to her, she felt an urgent yearning. Time was fleeting, and she had spent too long adrift in her own ambitions, forgetting how intertwined her life was with theirs. "I have to," she replied, with a firmness she didn't fully feel. She pushed back from the table and stood up, each step toward her daughters heavy with the weight of unresolved emotions. It wasn't just about rekindling her relationship with Thomas, it was about the foundation of her family. Sarah approached with cautious optimism, but inside her heart raced in tandem with all the hopes she'd suspended over the past years. "Hey, girls," she said, trying to infuse warmth into her voice. They turned, surprise melting their shared laughter into silence. "Mom?" Anna's wide eyes reflected a blend of excitement and hesitance, while Lily studied her with a slight frown, the corners of her mouth pulling down as though bracing for disappointment. "Can I join you?" Sarah asked. "Sure," said Anna, though her tone lacked the enthusiasm it maybe should have. As Sarah sat, her heart raced. Remnants of past mistakes flickered in and out of her mind like fireflies, nights spent away, missed baseball games, and events where silence filled the space where her presence should have been. "I've been thinking about you both a lot," she started, each word weighted with sincerity. "And about how I want to be more involved in your lives." "Really?" Lily responded, her skepticism palpable. "You said that before." The little girl's words were piercing, a testament to promises broken. "I know I haven't been around as often as I should have. Things were complicated, but I want to change that." The honesty of her intent lingered in the air. Their faces held shadows of hesitation, and Sarah felt their unvoiced doubts. "I want to help with school," she pushed forward, recalling Thomas's earlier proposal. "I think if we work together, the three of us can make it better, create a place where you can thrive." "That sounds nice," Anna offered softly, but the lack of full-hearted agreement cut deeper than any well-placed criticism. In that moment, a knot twisted in Sarah's stomach. Could words alone mend these fractures? The road ahead felt impossibly daunting, a minefield riddled with the reminders of her past failures. Could the love she had for her daughters be enough to rebuild the trust she had so carelessly chipped away? "Yes, it is nice," she replied, contemplative determination solidifying her resolve. "But it will take all of us, and I am ready to put in the work." "You're worth it." Despite their reluctance, she sensed a flicker of hope under the surface. Their eyes softened as they began to process her sincerity. Just then, the world around them faded into focus, encapsulating a potential rebirth of connection. "Mom, we have a game in a couple of days," Anna brought up, a hint of excitement blooming in her tone. Then I'll be there, Sarah promised, a newfound determination fueling her resolve. I'll be there for everything. You should know that I'm committed to doing better. A familiar warmth spread through her chest, the feeling of family being stitched together again, albeit tentatively. But as her daughters regrouped in subtle encouragement, Sarah glanced back at Thomas across the cafe. He watched from a distance, his expression unreadable but charged, as though he too was weighing their potential future amidst the shadows of the past. Let us make a list of what we want for our school, Sarah said, finding her voice amidst the swirling chaos of emotions. And our family. With her daughters nodding in agreement, a fleeting sense of clarity brushed over Sarah. But underneath it all, doubt still lingered. Engaging with Thomas again loomed large. Could they truly turn a new page without confronting the wounds that had shaped their journey? As they began to talk excitedly about ideas for the school, a single thought sparked through Sarah's mind: the past would need addressing, not just in words but through their actions moving forward. There was much to unravel, and soon enough, the time would come to express every uncertainty head-on. With determination swirling in the air, she understood that their next steps required not only planning for the future but reckoning with everything that had brought them to this moment. She had ignited a flame, but could it sustain the trials yet to come? Catching Thomas's eye again, she felt the urge to confront what lay ahead. The murmur of changing tides pressed on her. Their next meeting could very well be the turning point for all of them. Sarah's heartbeat quickened. Would she and Thomas finally bridge the chasm that had divided them, or would their reunion shatter before it truly began? The next day dawned with an unsettling clarity. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, illuminating the room that had felt so foreign to Sarah just a week prior. She sat up, thoughts racing, caught between anticipation and apprehension. The dynamics at home were shifting, and she was painfully aware that her every decision mattered now more than ever. Today marked the day she would gather the courage to confront Thomas. It wasn't just about rekindling a bond long forgotten, but also about addressing the years of silence that had produced a chasm between them. The weight of their shared history pressed heavily on her chest, every moment filled with fear of rejection clawing at her resolve. After a hurried breakfast, Sarah found herself pacing the kitchen, rehearsing her words. She felt the need for clarity, for acceptance not just from Thomas but from within herself. What could she say that would be different this time? What assurances could she offer that she hadn't given before? The familiar human inclination to avoid painful confrontations bubbled beneath her skin, but the thought of her daughters' faces ignited her determination. She had to do this. As she arrived at the cafe, nerves coiling within her, she spotted Thomas seated by the window, a picture of calm yet distant contemplation. She could read the lines of worry etched on his face. Years apart had not erased the connection, but rather had woven a tapestry of intricate doubts. Taking a deep breath, Sarah approached him, each step a tentative mix of resolve and uncertainty. "Hey," she greeted, trying to mask the tumult inside her with a semblance of casualness. "Hey," he replied, his tone revealing neither warmth nor hostility. Reserved, like a dam holding back a torrent of emotion, they sat in silence for a moment. The cafe hummed with life around them, contrasting the tension hanging between the two. "I wanted to talk about everything," Sarah finally said, her voice steadying under the weight of her admission. "Sure," Thomas replied, leaning forward, his stance shifting, if only slightly. "What's on your mind?" "Us." The simplicity of her statement felt monumental. "I can't keep pretending that the past doesn't matter. I've realized I need to take responsibility for what happened. For not being present." He studied her, and she felt her defenses begin to crumble under his gaze. "It's easy to say, Sarah. But what can you offer that's different this time?" His question cut sharply, and the familiar sting of frustration mixed with embarrassment surged within her. "I know I've disappointed you, and I know I've let the girls down," she admitted, feeling the truth weigh heavier than any assumption. "But I want to earn your trust again. For their sake and mine." His silence hung heavily, yet Sarah pushed forward. "I want us to find a way to communicate, to co-parent effectively. I don't want our past to define our present. I want to work through this together." Thomas's expression softened slightly but lingered with doubt. "What if you decide to disappear again, Sarah? I can't promise perfection, she said fiercely, drawing on her internal strength. But I can promise that every day, I'll strive to be better for you and the girls. The vulnerability in her voice felt like a massive weight being lifted, something she hadn't dared to articulate before. In that charged moment, she saw the flicker of hope in his eyes, but it was chained to years of disappointment. I want to believe you, he finally said, the fatigue in his voice evident. Then let us make a plan, Sarah urged. Let us set up boundaries, outlines for what we expect of each other. We can't fix the past, but we can build something new. One day at a time. Thomas sat back, his expression contemplative, a storm of thoughts playing out behind his eyes. She felt the distance between them beginning to close, yet knew it would take more than mere words to heal the wounds they'd inflicted on each other. Okay, he finally said, slow and deliberate, let us talk about what we need from each other moving forward. Relief washed over Sarah. The conversation would not resolve everything, but it was a step reassured by both courage and vulnerability. As they began discussing the logistics of co-parenting, Sarah felt embers of hope igniting within her, yet a lingering thought occupied her mind. Trust was not built overnight, their history had created a complex web of emotions that wouldn't unravel easily. Outside the cafe window, the world erupted in color as children played in the park across the street. Her daughters, the cornerstone of her motivation, were the embodiment of what she fought for. Ensuring their happiness was now just as important as mending her own relationship with Thomas. Yet as they delved deeper into the conversation, doubt crept back in. Would this new approach be enough? What if old patterns re-emerged, threatening their fragile progress? With every detail shared, she pondered how their history would inform the future she needed to create. Would they find a way to forge a new path, or would the weight of their past sink them once more? The tension danced around her, a turbulent reminder of the challenges yet to come. As Thomas spoke, Sarah knew she was standing at a precipice. They were finally confronting their reality, but would they have the strength to navigate the treacherous waters ahead? With resolve solidifying in her heart, she prepared herself for whatever storm lay ahead. It was clear the breakthrough was just the beginning, as they had only scratched the surface of a journey that contained lessons waiting to be unearthed. And with that, a thought ignited in her mind. What would it take to truly break down the walls that had been built? Would the pain of the past offer the insight they needed, or would it cripple their journey before it began? They spent the next hour mapping out a framework for co-parenting, a process that both excited and terrified Sarah. Every proposal met with cautious optimism felt like a delicate bridge being constructed over a chasm, fragile and vulnerable to the winds of their past. Yet, openness about their goals illuminated a path forward that she had only dared to imagine. Let us agree on weekly check-ins, Sarah suggested, sensing an opportunity to solidify their new communication strategy. Times when we can touch base on how things are going with the girls and with us set our intentions for the coming days. Thomas nodded, although the crease in his brow highlighted his skepticism. That sounds fine, but once the kids are involved, emotions can mix with decisions. It's easier said than done, he replied, his tone revealing that while he was willing to engage, he remained guarded. That's true. But it's what we don't discuss that has caused chaos in the past. We were terrible at being honest with each other, Sarah said, pushing against the instincts that tempted her to retreat into the shadows of doubt. This was a pivotal moment, and beneath his watchful gaze, she summoned the resolve she had built. What if it doesn't work? Thomas shifted in his chair, his vulnerability almost palpable. What if we just end up arguing again? Sarah's heart raced at the possibility, but she had already faced that fear numerous times in her head. Then we agree to reassess our plan. Nothing is set in stone if it doesn't serve the girls or us, she stated, feeling a flicker of determination mixed with a steel resolve. Thomas assessed her closely, perhaps seeing the unshielded passion in her eyes. You're serious about this, aren't you? He asked, surprise softening his features. I have to be, she replied, the weight of her responsibilities grounding her voice. This isn't just about you and me. It's about our daughters. I want them to see us get along and, most importantly, to know they're the priority in our lives. They deserve that. Just as he opened up to her plea, a thought surfaced within Sarah linked to an old fear, the same excuses and habitual patterns could threaten whatever fragile agreement they were forming. This time, she couldn't let it happen. She would confront her shortcomings. What if we built a support system? Sarah suggested, surprising even herself with her boldness. Maybe a therapist or a family counselor to help us navigate our discussions? Silence enveloped them as Thomas considered her words. Part of Sarah hoped he might reject the idea, allowing her a way out of making the unexpected commitment. Yet, as he finally nodded slowly, she realized she was ready to stand firm in a new role. I think that's a solid suggestion, he agreed quietly, the trepidation back in his voice. As they worked out the details, meeting schedules, boundaries about communication regarding the girls, and even the possibility of therapy, something shifted in Sarah's heart. Each word exchange not only clarified their future but also provided insight into her own hidden competencies. She was brave, resourceful, willing to change. Yet, a larger realization crept in: where they stood now, at the cusp of a new arrangement, was only the beginning. Years of conflict could not be erased. They were in turbulent waters, akin to a ship sailing through a storm, with every wave representing unresolved emotions, lingering doubts, and deep-seated resentment. Gradually, doubts resurfaced within her thoughts as Thomas wrapped the meeting up. Would they even manage to navigate their past pain while charting a new course? After finalizing their plans, Sarah felt unsettled. A tide of past insecurities threatened to drag her under, reminding her of moments where she had failed to keep promises to herself, to him, to their daughters. Exhausted yet determined, she needed to commit with unwavering authenticity. Deep down, she knew, if they couldn't break down the walls fully, their efforts would only yield hollow outcomes that would impact the girls' happiness. They needed to dig even deeper than just practical logistics. So, what's next? Thomas asked, the unguarded uncertainty lingering in his eyes. Sarah inhaled slowly, contemplating the impending challenge. Facing her own ghosts would be essential, but how could she do that while aiding Thomas in confronting his powerlessness? Next, she echoed thoughtfully, we each need to take a hard look at what we bring to the table. As they prepared to part ways, Sarah knew this was just the tip of the iceberg. Could they confront the deeper issues waiting to be uncovered? The more she pondered, the less certain she felt about their path ahead. Unraveling those layers brought with them echoes of painful memories, and confronting them would not only test their renewed resolve but require all her newfound strength. Determined, she realized it was time to confront not just her past, but her potential for growth. Would her next step solidify that commitment, or would they unravel everything once more? She left the cafe with a burning question echoing in her mind. What hidden truths lay beneath their surface, waiting to be explored? As days turned into weeks, Sarah found herself in a state of restless anticipation. The weekly check-ins with Thomas began to feel both like a lifeline and a weight around her neck. Each interaction forced her to reckon with a ghost she had lodged deep in her psyche, her ingrained fear of repeat failures. The very act of being vulnerable and asking Thomas to do the same required more of her than she had anticipated. One evening, while preparing dinner, Sarah's mind raced through snippets of their last conversation. The sound of sizzling vegetables filled the silence as she replayed every exchanged glance and unspoken word. Had she pushed too hard? Opened Pandora's box, only to realize she wasn't ready for the fallout? Snippets of doubt began to swim around her thoughts. She ached for clarity but was surrounded by confusion, a paradox she couldn't escape. Possessing an inherent ability to prioritize others, Sarah had always put her daughters first, stifling her own needs and fears. It was time to hang that habit up for good. She reached for her phone, scrolling through a list of nearby therapists. Every listing looked like a mound of unsorted emotions. Resisting the pull of indecision, she scheduled an appointment for herself. If she was to guide Thomas and work on their co-parenting strategies, she needed to understand her own motivations more thoroughly. The following week, she sat in a therapist's office for the first time, surrounded by the sterile comfort of beige walls and motivational posters. The therapist, a kind and observant woman named Amelia, prompted Sarah gently. What brings you here today? I'm trying to navigate a new co-parenting relationship with my ex-husband, but I'm struggling with my past with us, Sarah said, her voice shaky yet resolute. What fears do you have about the future? Amelia leaned in, her eyes holding a steady focus. The fear of disappointing my daughters again. Of failing to create a harmonious environment for them, Sarah admitted, the weight of her honesty starting to release some of the tension she held within. With each session, the fog of her past began to dissipate a little more. Amelia offered tools for managing anxiety, encouraging Sarah to confront her inner critic and adversary with a familiar face. Weeks passed in a blur of sessions, exercises, and introspection. Slowly, Sarah unearthed aspects of her identity that felt buried under the weight of her insecurities. She was a woman with vision and resolve. She wouldn't let her past dictate her future. As she cultivated these newfound strengths, she started to approach the weekly meetings with Thomas differently. She saw their interactions as opportunities for open dialogues rather than potential battlegrounds. By drawing boundaries that were reflective of her redefined self, she ignited a subtle shift in Thomas. He began to mirror her newfound openness, allowing more of his fragility to emerge amidst their discussions. One crisp autumn afternoon, during their meeting at the same cafe, Sarah suggested they both share one thing they could improve on as co-parents. Thomas looked pensive, the bright sunlight illuminating the shadows of his hesitation. Perhaps he was trying to grasp the implications behind Sarah's question, an invitation not merely to dialogue but to genuine self-evaluation. I think I often seek control in situations that make me uncomfortable, he finally said, searching her gaze for judgment. Sarah felt a jolt of empathy. He was acknowledging his shortcomings openly. I'm learning to be more vulnerable, too. To admit that I can't do it all alone, she said, her voice filled with a blend of trepidation and sincerity, but just as the conversation began to build momentum, doubt surfaced. Were they ready for such transparency? The undercurrents of their past loomed like dark clouds, threatening to rain on their progress. Despite their growing rapport, Sarah felt that something darker lurked beneath their arrangements, something neither had yet addressed, the unresolved pain that had led to their separation. What if we also nail down our expectations? What if there are deeper things we need to address beyond logistics? She leaned forward, her heart racing as she tried to maintain the balance between probing and safety. As the weight of her words settled in the air, she recognized the pivotal moment unfolding. Were they truly ready to excavate those old wounds? Her pulse quickened. Unearthing pain meant confronting the very thing that had governed their lives for too long. With that thought echoing in her mind, she braced for his response, ready to dive into the unknown even as doubt clawed at her insides. This was the juncture where authentic transformation could occur, but it required each of them to get uncomfortable. What are we really willing to face together? She thought, knowing that the answer could determine the viability of their renewed relationship and co-parenting journey. As Sarah waited for Thomas's reply, the tension folded around her like a heavy blanket. She was at the precipice of something profound, yet the fear of where it might lead gnawed at her. The cafe buzzed around them, coffee machines grinding and patrons chatting, but in that moment, their world had shrunk to the two of them and the ghost of their shared history. Thomas shifted in his seat, his brow furrowed in deep thought. Sarah's heart drummed in her chest. What if he retreated? What if he wasn't ready? The balcony outside was dotted with leaves turning to their autumn hues, a perfect metaphor for change. But change was daunting. What do you think we need to address? He finally asked, his voice steady but soft. I think we need to talk about us the way we were, how we fell apart, and what it means for our daughters now, she replied, her tone deliberate, carefully crafted to invite openness without placing blame. His expression shifted, skepticism shadowing his features. That's a lot to unpack, Sarah. Do you really want to go there? The weight of his question hung in the air, and Sarah realized they were at a crossroads. Facing the past could threaten to unravel what small threads of understanding they had managed to weave, yet avoiding it would leave their present cloaked in unresolved tension. Yes, she said, her voice firm yet quiet. I want us to be better co-parents. Don't they deserve that? This time her words infused with urgency, aimed at the shared objective of their daughter's happiness. For a heartbeat, they locked eyes, and in that shared silence, Sarah saw flickers of something deeper in Thomas, perhaps fear, perhaps hope. But was it an admission of guilt or the possibility of reconciliation? The last years were difficult, Thomas said finally, his voice breaking slightly. I struggled to see the damage we were causing them while trying to put on a brave face. I didn't want them to feel caught in the middle. Sarah nodded, her throat tight. I felt the same way, but we've also created a cycle of pain for them by not addressing our issues. Ignoring it only worsens the stakes. As she spoke, she felt the catharsis of confronting her own truths, pushing against the facade that kept her burdened. I wish I could take back the hurtful words, the misunderstandings, he confessed, his voice almost a whisper. It spiraled into a battle rather than a partnership. Their conversation felt like a fragile bridge, one that could easily disintegrate but held the potential for healing. It was as if each self-revelation dismantled the invisible walls they had built. He finally admitted not just to their failures, but to an emotional disengagement that had crept into their lives. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting an amber glow that seemed to bless their dialogue, Sarah grasped for one final push. What can we do right now to start rebuilding? How do we transform this moment from isolation into collaboration? Thomas looked at her, a fragile determination flickering in his eyes. I think we need to find a way to communicate better about our needs. But I'm still scared of stepping on old wounds. Let us put a plan in place, she suggested, feeling a newfound resolve coursing through her veins. It's an opportunity for both of us to commit more openly. If we slowly unearth those layers together, maybe we can finally create the environment that nurtures our girls. But as the hopeful exchange began to solidify, a thought crept into her mind like a dark specter. What if this was the calm before an inevitable storm? What if old resentments could resurface and wreak havoc on their fragile world? Just as he began to respond, a familiar face entered the cafe. A colleague from her past life, someone who had once been buried under layers of the old Sarah, emerged with a knowing smile. It sent a jolt of unease through her, forcing her to question not only who she had been but who she was in this moment of transformation. Could she balance the newfound strength she was discovering with the embedded insecurities that still lingered just around the corner? As Thomas paused mid-sentence to glance at the new arrival, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Do you really want this to work? She wondered, fearing the answer might fracture the very foundation they had begun to rebuild. The moment hung palpably in the air, with uncertainty trailing behind every exchanged glance. Sarah braced herself for the potential fallout, knowing that some truths might never surface unless they were truly ready to confront their past. And with that, the door of possibility swung open, yet fear curled its fingers around the edges of Sarah's mind. She had set the stage for transformation, but now she faced the question: could this renewed journey withstand the weight of the past? In the days that followed, the fabric of Sarah's life transformed in ways she had scarcely imagined. Each meeting with Thomas became a step toward unearthing the past while solidifying the foundation of their future. Their conversations deepened, revealing layers of pain and hope that had long lay dormant. Sarah learned to navigate her vulnerability, embracing discomfort as a catalyst for growth. She found herself participating more actively at the school, attending meetings, and rallying resources to reinstate critical programs that had been suspended due to budget cuts. With each donation acquired, she felt the weight of purpose filling the hollow spaces once occupied by regret. A glow of recognition blossomed within her. She was not only a businesswoman but also a committed mother striving to create a better environment for Lily and Emma. Meanwhile, her therapy sessions continued to peel back layers of self-doubt, revealing the resilient spirit she had always possessed. Amelia, her therapist, guided her to view challenges not as insurmountable walls but as opportunities for connection. The insights she gained echoed through her daily interactions, reminding her that displaying courage does not diminish strength. Instead, it amplifies her commitment to rekindle the bonds frayed by years of neglect. After weeks of hard work, Sarah and Thomas finally brought Lily and Emma into the fold. They presented a united front, addressing the girls' concerns and carefully outlining the collaboration they had forged. We want you both to thrive, Thomas said, his voice steady but filled with sincerity. And we believe coming together to support each other is the best way to do that. Lily, arms crossed and brow furrowed, offered a hesitant nod. You both haven't been so great at working together before, she challenged, her skepticism palpable. Emma, sensing the tension, grabbed her sister's hand and squeezed. But I think it's nice you're trying now, she said softly, her bright smile suggesting a glimmer of hope. Sarah inhaled deeply and leaned into the moment, reflecting on her daughter's honest perspectives. We understand that trust takes time, she admitted, but we're committed to being better. You are what matters most to us." At that moment, she felt the electric connection between them, a chance to change the narrative that had long held them captive. As the sun set, painting the sky in warm hues of orange and pink, they made plans for family outings, bound by the shared goal of building new memories. Each interaction felt like sewing thread into a tapestry, intricately woven, showcasing resilience and love. Sarah witnessed tangible evidence of her transformation. A once fragmented family was evolving toward wholeness, each step propelling them closer to healing. For the first time in years, Sarah felt grounded in a way that transcended success measured in monetary value. The sense of fulfillment she once sought in boardrooms blossomed in the heartfelt exchanges with her daughters, in collaborative efforts with Thomas, and in her renewed vision of motherhood. She had emerged from the shadows of isolation, carving out a space where vulnerability thrived. In the culmination of their term at the school, Sarah spearheaded a fundraising gala that not only met their targets but exceeded them beyond her wildest dreams. The event symbolized the unity she had sought. Community members came together, celebrating education, rekindling hope for future generations. Standing before a gathering of supporters, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of pride. She was not alone. She had forged bonds stemming from authenticity and shared purpose. As the evening drew to a close, Sarah was approached by a prominent figure in the philanthropic community, who expressed profound admiration for her work. "You've demonstrated remarkable leadership and vision. It's inspiring to see how you embrace both your success and your family," she praised. The validation rang true. A deep sense of accomplishment washed over Sarah as she recognized the full circle she had traveled. Not only had she found the courage to face her past, but she had reintegrated all of herself: the businesswoman, the mother, the person who craved connection. The layers of her identity no longer felt at odds but instead complemented one another. Returning home, Sarah felt lighter. The worries that once weighed on her shoulders seemed insignificant compared to the journey she had embarked on. She had conquered her fears and reclaimed her identity, establishing herself firmly and confidently within both her personal and professional realms. In the quiet of her bedroom, she caught her reflection in the mirror. There was strength in her gaze, authenticity in her smile. She was not merely a successful entrepreneur or a haunted mother, she was a woman transformed. As the final piece fell into place, Sarah sent a message to both Thomas and the girls, inviting them to join her for an impromptu ice cream night to celebrate their successes and their newfound connections. It was a simple yet powerful moment reflecting their achievements, an ongoing commitment manifesting in shared laughter. Life had taken on a new rhythm, interlaced with gratitude and purpose. As she looked ahead, the horizon gleamed brightly. The family she had fought to restore, though imperfect, was her greatest treasure, the rich tapestry of love she had stitched together through courage and determination. This was the moment she had aspired to create, a reimagined life with all the right pieces in place. Satisfaction enveloped her as she considered how far they had all come, eager to embrace whatever challenges and joys awaited them on this path of transformation. Now was the time for celebration, for laughter, and for cherishing the irreplaceable bond that could only stem from facing their truths. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.